Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us, and thanks to Jeremy and Jamie for having me along and presenting to you guys. My name's Andy Cuddy. I own Patient Handling. We're based in New South Wales, and we're the importer for Molift for Australia. And Jeremy has just recently taken on the Moe Lift range, and he's asked me to have a bit of a chat with you guys today about show you some of the products and some of the techniques that we can use to make the products work really well for us. So I'll try and keep it, I won't dumb it down because I know you guys are therapists, and so we do a range of different training. So the product we're going to start with is the Moe Razor, and it's a transfer platform for doing sit to stand transfers for people who have like compromised mobility. So it's not a replacement for an electric sit to stand lifter. It's for someone who has good cognition, is able to stand by themselves. So I'll show you the product. This is the Moe Razor in two pieces. So as you can see, it can come apart, and so you can put it into a car really easily. I think the total weight is about 8 kilos. So the two pieces separated are really not very heavy and can go into a small car really easily. So can you guys all see the Moe Razor base there? Hopefully. So to assemble the razor, we just place those.
That's all right.
Place into there, and there's two little hand wheels. Two little hand wheels like that. They screw into the back of the legs like this. So it's very quick to assemble. So this can be kind of useful for someone who's going around doing home care visits for carers, to be able to do transfers for people in the home. Not that hard to get in and out of the car. So that's the razor assembled and ready to go. So underneath the razor, it's got these 4 little wheels in the corner there on swivels, and these ones at the center, they obviously turn, but they don't pivot. So what that does, it makes the razor turn inside its own length. So like that, which sort of doesn't probably look like that much at the moment, but when you have the weight in the center of it, it means that it's very, very light to turn. So using the razor, there's a couple of different ways to use it. You can use it just like as a replacement for like a rail. So if someone was able to stand next to a rail and lift themselves up, get themselves standing, the razor can be used without the strap. And so we're going to just demonstrate how to use the razor without the strap. So one of the things about the razor is you need to be able to like stand on your weight bear. So a good test to be able to use the razor is if someone's able to lift their own feet. So can you lift your feet for me, please, Michelle? So she's passed the first test. So that the knee support here is height adjustable, and there's like a little string underneath that you pull, little wire, and so you can adjust that up and down. And these knee supports are articulated so that they can adjust to the angle of the person's knee. So we would do that, set that to a height makes it about 2 finger widths below the patella, and it locks in firmly. There's a brake which you apply with from the brake pedal on either side, so that applies the brake to both wheels. And then when we're not using the razor strap, we would get the client or the resident to just reach up and find a handhold that's comfortable. So can you do that for me, please, Michelle? And then nose over your toes and stand. And then we pop the brake off. And you can see that we can turn Michelle really easily. So one of the things, this is on short pile carpet, and if the carpet was like a longer pile, it would present a bit of a problem. So what you can do to avoid that problem is, if you're pushing forward, put your foot on the back of the razor to lift the front wheels marginally, just unload them so that it's not pushing the carpet along. So we move the razor, the person back into position so that the back of their calves are against the back of the chair, and pop the brake on again, and we can sit down. Thank you. Now, using the razor with the strap. So this is the razor strap, and it's a webbing strap with a sleeve over the top of it that's slippery material on the inside and sticky fabric on the back of it. So using the razor strap, the webbing part slides through the tube, and it makes it so you can use it to assist someone to stand. So we'll just move the razor back in to that point there, and on the side of the razor there's these little cleats here that we can place the webbing onto. So I'm going to place that onto there, and there's two heights. So we get the resident to lean forward, and we place the razor strap below their belt, like as low as you can get it, and nip it up firm. So now I'll get you to pop your hands up here, please, Michelle. And on the count of 3, I'm going to get you to stand, and I'm going to help you stand. So before I do that, I'm going to place my left foot on the base of the razor and my left hand on the handle here, keeping my body in a line, and I'm going to bend my knees. So I'm going to grab a hold of the handle, bend my knees, and then 3, 2, 1, and up. And then we pop that onto the strap there, and we can use that to transfer someone. And in this position here, Michelle's quite secure. She could almost completely arrest and she wouldn't fall over. So it's very, you're quite contained because your knees are locked out and you're held behind the back. And as I said, even with a person who's over 100 kilos, it's still very easy to turn them, especially on hard floors. So that's the Moe Lift Razor.
That looks great, Andy. I like how portable that product is. I'd never really thought of the use case of being a carer transporting it between different people's homes, and
Yeah.
I think that's a really good application for it. Talk a little bit about the types of chairs that it does and doesn't work well with.
Oh, okay. Yep. So I'm just going to also just show you the thing. So now I'm going to lower Michelle down, and so if you're lowering someone onto a toilet or onto a chair, and they're sort of prone to throwing themselves down, you can use the razor strap to completely control their descent. So if you get sit down as hard as you like I've got complete control over Michelle sitting down there. So if somebody was like toileting and they were going to drop themselves onto the toilet, you can use this to control their descent. So it reduces the risk of injury. So, okay, so you can see that the razor goes directly underneath that chair easily because there's a good gap. There's also, you can see there's a cutout on the front of the razor there, and that fits in nicely around a toilet. So you can get right into a toilet to get someone in position so that they're safe to sit on the loo. Some chairs that you struggle with would be some lift chairs. You can put elephant's feet under the lift chairs or blocks under the lift chairs to block it up so that you can get underneath the front of it. But the overall height of the razor is very low.
Yeah, it looks like it'd just be something that you'd want to try with a lift chair if you were thinking of using it with a client with a lift chair. And as Andy suggested, we could put some small feet on a lift chair if we had to permit clearance for this device to work. It's just a consideration during prescription, I would think.
Absolutely, 60 millimeters is the minimum height that that you need. So you probably want clearance of 65 just to be sure. So another way you can use the razor is by turning these knee supports, and you can use it to rest someone's leg if they need to dress their leg or have some treatment or elevate their leg. Yeah, so it's another way you can use the hoist or use the razor. So the next thing we're going to look at is the Moe Lift Smart. So this is the Moe Lift Smart, and it is a 150 kilo safe working load patient lifter. that can be folded up and placed in a suitcase and sent on a plane. Not that we actually use planes anymore, but yeah, it's great for traveling, great for around the home if you have limited storage space, and it's just, yeah, generally compact and really easy to use. It's got a really fast lifting speed as well. I think it's like 45 millimeters per second. So it's one of the fastest lifting hoists on the market. So as you can see it there, that's the Moe Lift Smart. You can use it and tow it around like that. To get it into the back of a car, you could rest it, these wheels here on the back of the tailgate of a small hatch, and then lift it up and roll it straight in. Or you could take it apart into two pieces. So what I'm going to do now is show you how the Smart is unfolded and set up. So to unfold the Moe Lift Smart, we place our knee against the hoist here, then undo this elastic from around here, and then we can put the hoist down. So at this point, you can either put a brake on or put your foot behind the hoist. So I'll put a brake on, and then we'll reach down, lift the hoist up. To that point there, I'll take the brake off so I can turn it around and show you what I'm doing. And so at this point here, the hoist, the lifting column or the main mast of the hoist won't lock in because the legs aren't at a safe width. And the legs are not battery operated, they're operated by these two foot pedals here. So I press on that and they get to a point where they're at a safe working width. So for stability, and the main column drops down. And then to finish off the process, we fold that lever down and it's ready to hoist. Unhook the suspension, and I've got a battery on charge over there. Right, sorry about that, back again. So that's the battery charger and that's the battery. These are nickel metal hydride batteries, so they don't have any special battery charging rules. So you can run them dead flat, leave them on charge indefinitely because this is a smart charger. The only thing that we would say is when you first get the lifter is to establish the battery sort of charging pattern by completely discharging it 3 times and fully charging it. So the battery just drops into there to charge, and there's an indicator light on the top here. So green means it's good to go. Red means it needs charge. If it's flicking green and red, call us or call Jeremy because it's broken. Or if it's yellow green, it means it's halfway through a charge cycle. So, and the battery just drops into the control box here, and it always makes a nice little beeping sound that lets you know that it's happy. So just here, I don't know if you can see that clearly, guys, but there's 2 lights. One's the battery light and one's the service light. If the service light's green, that means that everything's good. We actually had a call this morning. We get them pretty much every second day. I've got a Moe Lift and the service light's on. Ask what colour it is. It's green. Everything's good. So with the Moe Lift, there's software built into the lifter that counts the number of lifts that the lifter does. And it's pretty clever the way it does it, because it doesn't just count the number of button presses like that. So some hoists would count each time I press that button with no load on it as a lift. And that's significant because with Linac, who are the people who manufacture this actuator, they have a service life of the actuator of 10,000 cycles. So if you press that button 10,000 times on a hoist that doesn't work out how much work the hoist has done, after 10,000 presses of the button, even if the hoist hasn't done any work at all, you're meant to have this actuator overhauled or replaced. So what the Moe Lift does, it works out the drain on the battery and calculates the amount of actual work that's been done and relates that back to an average lift. So I think an average lift is a 70 kilo lift for 21 seconds. So what that does from the maintenance perspective of the hoist, it means that instead of the maximum service life of the Linac actuator coming up after 10,000, it's more like 21,000 or 22,000 hoists, average lifts. So it can really extend the life of the hoist. And so conversely, if you're lifting a person who's at the absolute maximum of the hoist's safe working load at 150 kilos, it's going to count that as more hoists or more lifts than a 25 kilo person. So it works it out, and it works it out so that it keeps the hoist safe. I'll just run through some other things. The emergency on-off button, I think it's there just to isolate the battery. I've never seen a hoist get so crazily out of control that someone said, quick, hit the emergency stop. I don't think it happens. So that's off. When it's on, there's a little green stripe around the emergency stop button. We get a lot of calls from people saying, my hoist doesn't work. And another thing is, you know, have you checked the emergency stop? And invariably, it's usually the emergency stop's pressed in. So the hand control is just up and down because the legs are controlled by the foot pedals. And some other differences of the hoist. The lifting suspension is a 4-point suspension instead of a 2-point. And we can use it as a 2-point suspension by just putting the sling on across the diagonal of the spreader bar. But what this distance here does, it allows additional space between the leg support straps and the shoulder support straps, so it doesn't pull the person who's being hoisted into a ball. So other little features of the hoist are the inability to, it doesn't, if it comes down on anybody, it won't push any downward force onto them. So I'm holding the button there, pressing it down, and this actuator here only pushes up, it doesn't pull down. So I can push that up, but it comes down and rests on an end stop there. So that's pretty much all I can say about the Moe Lift Smart. It's got like really low profile casters at the front, which allow it to get under a lot of things that I think it's like 75 millimeters or 100 millimeters. Can't remember. It'll be in the detail that that Jamie sends out afterwards. But it's a great hoist. It's really lightweight. It's 26 kilos, and it'll separate into 2 parts really easily, so that say you needed to get it into the boot of a car, you can take that off, and that's 13 kilos, 14 with the battery. So the battery weighs 1 kilo.
So Andy, some of the feedback that we've had already from the trials that we've been out and done is that people are really liking the fast lifting speed that this hoist appears to have. It seems to be a little bit quicker on the up and down than some of the other hoists that we've had in our range. Obviously, you don't want your hoist to be like a rocket or a bucking bronco, but it is, when you're doing lots of lifts every day, that little bit faster is a nice thing. The other thing is that people have really been enjoying the posture that 4-point spreader bar creates. The additional space has proven to be very popular, and we've had some of the best, I don't know how you'd say this, the best looking lifts that we've done have come because that 4-point spreader bar just creates such a good posture when you're lifting. So yeah, that's been pleasing.
Yes, we like, one of the things that Moe Lift really work on is trying to make the environment suit the person. So the hoists and the slings are designed for the people who are being hoisted. So I know that probably most of you would have been like hoisted at some stage in your careers, like maybe at uni, or you know, at like out doing, you know, trials or in services. And if you were being hoisted every day, and this was like a really big part of your life, you would, after being in a Moe Lift Sling, you would insist on having a Moe Lift Sling because they are so comfortable. That being said, they're not absolutely suitable for everybody. Like there's some people who have really complex seating and, you know, really like very, very complicated postural requirements are better off in a custom made sling. And that's a market that the Moe Lift Slings are not really suitable for.
So just while Andy's gone, there was a question from Laura. How much does the hoist weigh when folded into the suitcase? The total weight of the hoist is about 26 kilos. I'm not sure what the weight of the suitcase would add to that, and be a couple of kilos. That suitcase, I would say, is really designed for someone who needs to travel on an aeroplane or in a bus or a coach or something like that with the hoists, someone who needs to protect the hoist from damage when more public style transport is being utilised. The real benefit for someone who's perhaps transporting this hoist between people's homes is, as Andy demonstrated, you can break it into two 13-kilo pieces, which makes it realistic to lift in and out of the boot of a car. So yeah, that's a pretty nifty feature.
Sorry, back again, guys. Okay, so what I'm going to do is give you an overview of the sling range and some of the differences, and then we're going to show you how to apply a sling to someone whilst they're sitting. So you've probably all seen a sling like this one, which is, I'm not sure what brand it is, but the way that the sling's constructed, it's made of a mesh type material, which is very stretchy, and it has the leg supports, which are attached by webbing. And the piece of webbing's about, so that webbing's about 70 mils long. You can see it's just tagged on there with a box stitch. So what that does with this, with the leg support here, you can see if I hold this down here and pull on that, the way that this distorts. So you can see these sides of the leg support fold up. So what that means is you end up taking the majority of the weight through this section on the sling, on the leg support, and these parts don't actually take any weight because they're outside of the line of load, so outside of that line. So the way that the leg supports are designed is they're made out of the same sort of webbing, like 50mm seatbelt webbing, polyester, but they are folded in half, and then it goes around and forms the edge of the sling, and then turns into the other leg support strap, and then comes around and then is folded out flat. Like so, they undo the fold there and fold it out flat along the sling, and then they turn it into the shoulder support. And then that comes around and tags off on itself. So what that means is when you load the leg support, you put a lot of force on it, it doesn't distort at all. So that means that that stays always very flat against the resident's leg. Another thing that you might be able to determine from the video or from the presentation is that the slings are quite firm. So there's high density foam in the slings, and compared to a sling like this, which has no body in it, people would say, oh, why would you have that in there? So there's a couple of reasons. It makes it more comfortable for the person who's in the sling, because there's quite a lot of shape cut into the sling. There's a drop seam here, so it conforms to the person's body shape a little bit better in around their buttocks. And the other thing that it does, it makes the sling a lot easier to manage, so that when you can fold the sling and apply the sling with one hand. So if I hold the sling away from myself and fold that edge that way and that edge that way, I can apply that sling. I'll hold that sling with one hand. So this is a small sling, but with that, I couldn't do that with a soft sling. So it's makes it really easy to apply. Some other things about the sling that I'm just going to run through as well. All of the information about the sling is on an embroidered label here. So the benefit of an embroidered label is that the information won't come off in the wash. So when a sling you're unable to read the safe working load or the manufacturer, you're meant to condemn the sling. So this extends the life of the sling, particularly in facilities, because they have quite a lot more compliance. All of the information for the for compliance, like serial numbers, lot numbers, who's the manufacturer, and washing instructions are on this label here, which is tucked away so that it doesn't get the mechanical action of being in the washing machine. So it tucks away nicely out of the way. And this little image here is an instruction on how to apply the sling. So that's the Moe Lift Sling. So what I'm going to do, one of the major features, the slings have a pocket on the back here, and that's not for putting your cigarettes in or your phone. It's for placing your hand in and pushing it right down into position. So this is an extra small sling. On the sizes larger than extra small, there's a pocket on the legs as well. So so you can use that to scoop underneath and place the sling under someone's legs. So I'm just going to show you how to apply a sling using that technique. So usually when someone's, sitting there in a say they're in a facility, what's going to happen is they're going to get lifted by the hoist, and the sling's going to get applied to them. There's not much interaction with the person being hoisted. So what we like to train is, rather than coming in and lifting the arm up, straightening someone up like that, getting them all ready to hoist, and then pulling them forward, getting the sling and sort of shoving it down their back, we sort of take the approach of come in, get down to their level and engage with them. Say, hi, Michelle, how are you today? She's smiling, so everything's okay. So what we're going to do is pop the sling on today and use the hoist and lift you. Is that okay? So it's always good to get engagement from the person who you're doing the hoisting with. Now, so you've got a problem with your left arm there. How's your right arm? Good. Are you able to reach across, grab your left elbow and lift your arm across for me, please? So I know this is like a pie in the sky fantasy sort of thing, but anything you can do to reduce the manual handling for the carer is a good thing. So if you can develop lifting strategies that give the minimum amount of manual handling for the carer, that's the good thing. Okay, so I'll do the file this way and the file that way. And fold the head support down. Now I can manage the sling with one hand easily. I'm going to pull Michelle's shoulder onto my hip and place the sling into position. Head support up. Sorry for bashing in the face, but it's all right. And so I'm going to use my hand in that pocket to pop the sling down into the correct position. So where the sling needs to be is this part here needs to be in line with your coccyx, just there. So anything higher than that and the person will feel like they're falling out of the sling. Anything lower than that and it'll be cradling them a little bit too much. And it makes it difficult to put the leg supports on then. So that's in position now. So what I do is I separate the leg straps there and I pull them around the side and pop them into position there. Same with this one, pull it around the side and pop it into position. So there's a couple of different techniques for getting the sling underneath the person's bottom. So you can push the edge webbing of the sling into the cushion whilst it's away from the skin. You can pull it like that, so you're not dragging it over the skin. So another way, if the person has good skin integrity, so you're not really concerned about abrasion, you can place the leg strap underneath the knees and pull the opposite leg support and do the same the other way. and that'll get the sling in exactly the right position. So this is a situation where we use the pockets on the legs, and we always put our outside hand in so you're not all chicken winged up. So we lift the leg up slightly and pop the sling on. Same the other way. Lift the leg up slightly and sit on there. And these pass through each other. So we're going to use the Moe Lift air ceiling hoist. So with the correct training, it's very, like, it's with a ceiling hoist, it's conceivable with the correct clients that you can do single person transfers. So single carer transfers. And the benefit for that is that it reduces the number of care hours needed and it saves the person's money out of their NDIS plan or their aged care package. So there's various lengths here on the leg supports, so little webbing loops. So the shorter you make it, the more the person is going to be into the head support. The longer you make it, the more upright they'll be. So I'll put it on the second longest one. And on the shoulder support, there's only one loop. It's one continuous loop, and I'm going to show you what that's about in a second. So when you're doing hoisting, always come and stand next to the person. And when you get to the point that the hoist is about to take up, make sure that everything's connected properly, because the majority of accidents that cause injury with hoisting is due to either using the wrong sling or not having the sling correctly attached to the spreader bar. So you ready to go? Here we go. With the distance between the lifting points here and how comfortable Michelle's sitting, like, it's very easy, like you're not pulled into a little ball or anything like that. And I've sat in these things for like quite a while, and you can sit there for a long time. So just going to pop that on there and pop the chair out of the way.
That high density foam, Andy, makes a real difference to the comfort in the sitting position as well. When I was hoisted up in this, I just noticed that I felt like I was sitting on a firm surface, not sort of being suspended in a hammock, so to speak, that was folding me up.
For sure. Because with the softer slings, just by virtue of the fact that there's no body in the material, if it's not properly supported, like through its design or through the strength of the fabric, it will end up, you'll feel like you're sitting on a webbing strap the whole time. So you can see that with a ceiling hoist, it's very easy to do a transfer. So I'm going to pop Michelle's feet up on the bed, and I'm going to pop her down. So we've got the fixed loops here, and they won't change. But what will change here is this sliding loop, because it's not fixed to the spreader bar. When Michelle's bum hits the bed, this strap here will go loose, and this one will take up the weight. But as it goes down, this will start to slide, and it'll automatically put her down. So it eliminates the need for using a hoist with a tilt frame. So you see, this one's now loose, and this is starting to move. So automatically puts it down, and going back the other way, it does exactly the same thing. I'm just holding these here because as soon as this takes up, it's got a little bit of a tendency to pull the sling up someone's back. So if I hold that there with just a little bit of force, not a lot, just to hold the fabric against Michelle's legs, it'll stop the hoist from pulling up her back. And so it brings her up into the sitting position automatically. Because I selected not the longest loop here, Michelle's in a little bit of an inclined position. So I'm just going to grab our chair back.
So you can see Michelle's leg posture is really great there as well. It's not being pulled apart, and we're not exerting undue force on Michelle's legs either by not having the sling loops intertwined the way that they are. And that's, I think that's important to highlight.
Yeah. It's like for specific clients, you can actually not loop the slings through and like take this one to that side and that one if they need to have their legs separated. But that's on very rarely do we see that. So you can see Michelle's in quite an inclined position, and the temptation is always to, when you're putting someone down, to grab this handle at the back and give it a good old reef and tip them up. But because Michelle may need the head support, so she might have poor trunk control, we always think that doing that to someone and pulling them forward, and like they potentially fall out of the front of the sling, they're using a sling with head support for a reason. So what we try to do is, if you're putting someone into, say, a power chair, tilt the chair so that the backrest angle matches the angle of the back of the sling. Or if they're going into a conventional chair like this, you can tilt the chair. I'll just come down a little bit more. You can tilt the chair like that, and you can see if I took the chair away, Michelle still wouldn't fall on the ground. But because if I pull it back that way and then lower her that way, she's sitting as upright in the chair as she can possibly be. So that's how you pop someone back into a chair, into a sitting position, without like reefing them around and making it so that they fall out the front of the sling. Sorry. Try not to hit the person in the head with the sling bar as well, especially if they're your wife.
So critics will say, Andy, that there are some safety issues surrounding tilting chairs back like that. That's not my opinion. Do you want to talk a little bit about the pros and cons of that from a safety perspective for the user?
Yeah, for sure. So when people do have those sort of concerns, my rationalization of it is, if you took the chair away, there's no chance of the person falling and hitting the ground. So that's the first thing. Like, the safety of the person being hoisted is assured. When you grab the back of the sling and pull someone back into the chair, that's a manual handling issue. So you're starting to put force through your body to get the person in the correct position. Or if you're pushing knees, there's still manual handling issues. So it's not suitable with all chairs, that's for sure. So if the chair had wheels on it, you probably wouldn't be doing that because it'd be uncontrollable. But it's you can, by using the longer loops on the sling, on the leg supports, make the person very upright, and you don't have to do that tilting with the chair if that's an issue. So, but if it's a power chair or a wheelchair that has tilt, there's no problem. What you're really trying to do is get that angle between the intersection between the backrest and the cushion to be the first thing that the person's body hits, so that then they are sitting as far back on the cushion as they possibly can. Because someone who's in a chair all day, it's one of the things that really gets to them. If they can't get all the way back in the chair and then they start sliding forward, it's really quite upsetting for them. And you've probably seen it a lot in aged care facilities as well. Older residents who are in chairs all day, they end up sliding forward, and there's not much you can do if you don't get it right when you first put them in the chair. So one of the things that people get concerned about with the Moe Lift Slings, because of the high density foam, is how do I get it under somebody whilst they're lying down? And it is a real concern. I'm just going to move the camera a little bit, frame it a little bit better, hopefully. So one of the things that the Moe Lift Slings have is this, we call it the folding line. And they've made it like a gap in the foam, so it's just material, so that the sling's really flexible at that point. So what that does, it means we can fold the sling along those lines and you end up with this profile of the sling like that, not the full width, just the half profile there. And what that does, it means we can get that edge underneath somebody, and hopefully we don't have to roll them if we do it well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a log roll with Michelle. I'm going to pop this arm up here and this knee up here. I'm going to roll her away from me like that. Ooh, that way. And then if there was a bed rail there, it'd stop her from falling off the bed, but hopefully she won't fall off. So I'm going to do this fold along the folding line. And I'm going to make it so that this part of the leg strap is still accessible once I pop it underneath Michelle. So we want that part of the sling lined up at the right spot. And then we pop it under as far as we can. And we roll her back this way. So, and that leg down. And I'm going to pop around the other side. And I'm going to need to roll it back the other way as well. No, this leg, wrong leg, sorry. Don't know what I'm doing. So I can roll over that way, and now I can pull that leg support out without having to drag her around. And then using the pockets on the sling, pop that under there. Same with that one, come around the other side. Pop that under. And then these get crossed again. So that's how we get, using a log roll to get the sling underneath somebody. And similarly, to get the sling out, we tuck that back under and we roll. This patient's not being very helpful. She's going to go for early discharge. I'm going to show you another technique, which is how to get a sling underneath somebody without moving them at all. So I'm going to get 2 slide sheets. Nice new ones is always good because they're nice and slippery. And I've got 2 of different colours here. And I'm going to get Mel to come and give me a hand. So these slide sheets are 1 metre by 1.5. So they're not the biggest ones, and you don't want the biggest ones because they get a bit cumbersome. So the 2 metre ones get a bit difficult to do this technique with. So we pop our slide sheets out. And I've got 2 here so we can see the different colours to what I'm doing. So we place that one over there and we line up the corners up this end. You can push that thing out of the way there too. So what we're going to do is hold those tight between you and I, Mel. And then we're going to, about 125 mils, like 5 inches. We're just going to fold that over. And we're going to do the same thing again, over all the way down to the bottom of the arrangement. So now we've got this, you can see we've got the 2 slide sheets rolled up, and we're going to bring them up and pop them under the pillow. And here we've got the last roll is going to be sitting on the top. We're going to pull this part and just pull it down underneath Michelle's shoulders, and then hold these 2 firmly to the bed. Turn our bodies around sideways so we don't put our backs out. And then using that and keeping it tight between Mel and myself, we move our grip down, and that's how we get 2 slide sheets underneath somebody. So you can use that to do like a slide sheet transfer without, so if you have a bariatric client, you can use that technique to get 2 slide sheets underneath them. And then we introduce the sling So we put the sling over the back of the bed, head of the bed, and then lift the pillow up slightly and separate the two slide sheets. So we've got the two slide sheets separated, so then we get the red one and the blue one and hold them together, turn our bodies round again, make sure that the sling doesn't get hooked over the head of the bed, and then we pull the sling down into position. So we just get a little bit more, that's it. Now we've got to get this top slide sheet out. So what we can do is we can scrunch it down and bring it to the small of Michelle's back and bring that up the same way. And then I can push it through underneath there and Mel can pull it out. And then to place the same thing with the legs just under there as we've done before. So I'm just going to bring the camera back and just show you some of the differences between the slings in the range. So this sling here that I've got in my hand is the what we'd call the regular sling, general purpose sling. And you can see that it's got quite a large aperture in the bottom of the sling. So this would be for your normal client, like normal sort of body shape, normal body tone. This one has head support. So yeah, general purpose sling, that's that one. Another one in the range for Moe Lift is the Amputate Sling. So the Amputate Sling, similar materials, but it has a much smaller aperture in the bottom of the sling. You can see there, like it's significantly narrower. The leg supports are sculpted so that they can come around and tuck into each other like that to form a really tight cradle to prevent the person from falling through the bottom of the sling. And there's a quite decent mid-support strap with 2 buckles and non-slip fabric on the inside of it. So Moe Lift call it an amputee sling, but when we look at the kind of clients that we see, there's a range of body shapes that we see. So if someone was very tall or very thin and they had poor tone, they don't necessarily have to be an amputee to use an amputee sling. So you could really secure somebody with the strap and the smaller aperture in the bottom of the sling to make sure that they're nice and safe when they're being hoisted. The toileting sling has the same strap or even beefier strap around the middle than the amputee sling, because the bottom of the sling is completely open. You can see there that the aperture in the bottom of the sling is unlimited, pretty much, and you could use this sling for somebody who had good core control and wanted to do their own transfers. So they're able to put the belt on themselves, able to slide these underneath the legs by themselves, and using a Moe Lift with power traverse, they would be able to hoist themselves out of a chair onto a bed, put the sling on and off themselves. So those are the differences in the range. So thinking about it in general purpose, amputee or toileting, you could say good core control for using the toileting sling, able to do own transfers. Poor core control or very thin, you'd use an amputee sling or the general purpose. There are also in the range from Moe Lift a mesh sling for bathing. So it's similar to other slings in as much that it doesn't have a lot of form, but it still has the pockets on the back and on the leg rests to be able to pop it into place. And it has the same sliding loop system to be able to reposition the patient without having to do a lot of manual handling.
We did have a question in the chat here. When using the 2 slide sheets to get a sling underneath a client laying down, should both the top and bottom slide sheets be removed once the sling is in place?
The top slide sheet definitely, but the bottom slide sheet you don't need to move, because when the person's hoisted, the slide sheet will can be easily removed. It's just a little bit harder when the person's like when you've got the sling on top of the slide sheet and the bed as well. So you can try and remove it, but we've never done that.
And again, when the person's in the air, it's pretty easy to just go ahead and pop that out.
Pop it out of the way. But
So
it's really important. It's really important to have good fresh slide sheets doing that technique, because really old dead ones are really hard to get down. Particularly, if they're not like a regular body shape, you can come quite a lot of resistance if the slide sheets aren't super slippery. But if they're new, it's remarkably easy.
Yeah, and even with heavy people, do you think, Andy? Because that's one key application for that, right? Sometimes the log roll, or there's just not enough space on the bed to do a log roll, or a log roll doesn't expose enough area to get that sling fitted under there with some of our more bariatric clients.
I've applied a sling using that technique to a 320 kilo person, and it was there was no other way to put the sling on them. So it was 3 people put the sling on rather than 6 was what they were looking at usually doing.
Yeah. And we just had a question from Yvonne in the chat: the cleaning of the slings, washing, and how long to get them dry?
Good question. So standard infection control wash. So they need to go. If it's in a domestic situation, don't put them in a top loader, and ideally put them in something like a sling bag, which is like a really large, delicates bag, like it's a mesh bag with a zip on it, just so that the straps don't get caught around anything in the washing machine or the sling gets destroyed. So don't use bleach on them. Infection control wash up to 80 degrees. Drying them, don't put them in a dryer. Or if you do have to put them in a dryer, put them on. Don't use heat. Just use the on a cool cycle, and don't dry them in the sun. And so it depends on the day, but they'll definitely dry within a day outside, and not in.
Does the high density foam hold a lot of water, Andy?
It's closed cell foam, so it can't. There's 2 types of foam. There's open cell and closed cell. Open cell foam is the sponge that you wash your car with, and closed cell foam won't absorb any water. They can leave it in water all day and it won't take any water on.
Yep, so it's just the fabric that's got to sort of evaporate the water out. Yeah,
exactly.
Weight capacity on the slings. I'm not sure if you said that already.
So the weight capacity on the sling range from the extra small sling through to the extra large is 300 kilos. There's also a bariatric range which goes up to 500 kilos. So the Moe Lift ceiling hoist motors, they have a 160, 200, 250, 300, 350 and 500 kilo lift motor. So you'd only use the bariatric ones on the 350 or the 500 kilo lift motors.
Yeah.
Because none of the Moe Lift floor hoist range only goes up to 300 kilos.
We had a question in the chat. What's the expected lifespan of the slings?
Good question. If they're not soiled, you don't have to wash them daily. They'll last indefinitely. You'd say 5 years minimum. We also have them in really high use environments like spinal cord injury units, and the slings are washed daily, and they probably last 2 to 3 years before they start looking pretty tired. But that's hospital wash cycle. They do look after them pretty well. Instead of having like a normal tumble dryer, they've got drying cabinets. So they have the slings are suspended out of the sun and dried properly. But they do, they do reach the end of their life in 2 years, 2.5, 3 years.
Yep. Yeah. So we do a lot of hoist and sling inspections for various aged care facilities around the place, and
Sure.
the key failure mode for the slings in most cases is not that the sling actually wears out, but it is that the labeling wears off, and that pocket for the printed labels goes a long way to preserving the lifespan of the actual labeling on the sling.
Absolutely.
With these slings, I think we're going to see that the slings actually wear out rather than the labels.
The labels, yeah. So the other, like, and the embroidered section as well. So that the key thing is being able to read the safe working load.
Yeah.
And you know, like we do the similar sorts of testing, and when we see slings that need to be condemned because you can't read the label, the facility say, oh, you know, can you retest it for us? And we're always reluctant to do that, because if we test it, it becomes our problem. So, and the facilities, like, once they see what you're talking about, they understand that, like, retesting and relabeling a sling with a safe working load is not terribly practical.
Yep. Yep.
So one of the big enemies of slings, because they're made out of polyester, the stitching's polyester, is anything with bleach in it, like anything with chlorine, because it just rots the fabric and really reduces the strength of it, along with UV. Yeah, those are the sling killers. So
yeah. One thing, Andy, I'd just like to put forward is that I think that ceiling track hoists are a bit underutilised and perhaps a little bit underprescribed. We've had quite a number of really great results lately, keeping people at home, because they can be lifted with less carers, or they can be lifted by family members in a way that they just couldn't, where they had to push a mobile floor hoist around on the carpet in people's homes. And you know, that's the goal, keeping people at home and independent for longer, right? I think that a ceiling track hoist, or even a gantry system, and Moe Lift's got a great gantry system that goes with either their Air or Nomad ceiling track hoist motors, which is a great way to resolve some of the issues that we see out and about in the community. Carers having so much trouble just pushing the mobile floor hoists around on the floor.
So this is the Moe Lift Nomad. It's called a Nomad because it can move around, and it's a portable ceiling hoist. So the benefit for the Nomad is, as opposed to a hoist like this one, which is the Moe Lift Air. I don't know if you can see that up there, but to take this one off the rail, you need a ladder. So you can move it from rail to rail, like, it's easy to connect. It doesn't require any tools except for a ladder. And then, you know, there's going to be resistance to changing it over. So with the Nomad, it works in a different way. Instead of the lift motor being up on the rail and the webbing strap and the suspension coming down, the Nomad has it so that the lift motor is also the suspension, and the webbing strap goes up and clips onto the rail. And so to get the Nomad up to the rail, we use this reacher arm. So I'm just going to bring this over here so you can see. Okay, so to connect the Moe Lift Nomad to the like the little eye up there, we've got this hook. So the hook is has a magnetic pole that slots into it, and when that's pushed in, it opens the hook. So I'm going to hold onto the strap and hold onto the stick and reach up and hook it on there, close the hook, and take the reacher arm off, come around here and get a hold of the control, and then we can start to use the hoist. So it has the same Moe Lift 4-point suspension. It's just got a distance there to give it some separation, and it's got this nice curvature here that gives a bit more space for the person's head who's being hoisted. So, and these will lift up to 255 kilos. So pretty useful hoist. Great for aged care, great for in a home where you've got maybe a rail in the bedroom and one in the bathroom, and you could have a rail in the bedroom or a rail over a spa, and you could trot this out to the spa in the backyard and use it to pop someone into the pool. And then when you're finished using it, you pop it back into the trolley, so you don't have to lift it. It only weighs 8 kilos, but less manual handling is better. And then we reach up, pop that in there, unhook that, and we're good to go.
So we love the Nomad again because of how fast it is compared to other ceiling track hoists, and you really notice it when the unit is under load. A lot of other hoists fast up and down unloaded, but you apply a little bit of load to them and they really bog down. The Nomad just seems to handle it really well when it's got load on it, and how light it is. So not everyone uses the trolley that you see there. Some people are using the doing it freehand, so to speak, and that 8 kilo weight makes it a lot more realistic for someone to cart around by hand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Couple of questions in the chat. What's your experience with clients with athetoid movements using the Razor? That's from Yvonne in the chat.
Yeah, okay. So I would probably, when you're looking at using the Razor with somebody, you need to perform a bit of a risk assessment with them, and it's not the right thing for all clients. So I would say, depending on what the degree of involuntary movement is, and if they're able to maintain a stable standing position, I would say it's probably okay. If they've got control of one hand and they can firmly hold the handholds on the Razor, I think you'd probably be okay. But again, it's a risk assessment sort of thing. If they are really having difficulty with uncontrolled movements, you might consider using the Moe Lift Quick Razor, which is the battery, electrically operated sort of older cousin of the Razor, and it has a similar lifting pattern. So it has that nose over toes sort of lifting pattern, but it really constrains somebody so that there's very little chance for them to fall or have come loose of the sling or anything like that. We have a client who has motor neuron, and he uses the Moe Lift Quick Razor so that he can get himself vertical. He has got no tone at all anymore, so he's completely like limp when he's standing, so his head's over backwards, but and his back's very arched, but he loves it because it just gets him up vertical. So, and he didn't want to put a ceiling hoist in his house, so he stands there watching TV from it.
A couple of things I'd add to that. Some of the not negotiables in the risk assessment would be the person's going to have to be able to keep their feet on that platform.
Absolutely.
If the movements are so uncontrolled that they're lifting their feet up or moving it, or there's any risk that they're going to fall off, I'd say that probably that device is not appropriate. And I think during the standing action, the person is going to have to be able to assist through sort of grabbing and pulling in most cases on that Razor. And if it's likely that they're going to let go halfway through and fling back, particularly with how low that lifting strap sits, I'd say that might not be the right product for this person either.
Yeah, absolutely agree. So that, like, being able to participate in the transfer is so important, because that lifting strap is not a replacement for a sit to stand hoist. You can't. So if the person's if it was an 80 kilo person who was being helped to stand using that strap, and if they weren't able to help at all, you know, somebody of my size or smaller would probably struggle to do it. So you'd have to be reasonably strong to be able to get any sort of, like to be able to move them at all if they weren't participating. So they need to be able to hold at least with one hand and participate like at some level in the initial sort of lift off of the standing motion. So
yep, that's good. Can you please give an overview of how to measure someone for the right size sling?
Far out. That's always a tricky one. So I think that the critical thing for getting the right sling size is so that ends up forming a nice shape at the back of the person. That's the key. The other thing as well, because there's in the Moe Lift documentation, there's a weight guide, and I think the weight guide's a little bit difficult to get exactly right. If it's okay if you've got a normal sort of body size, like, you know, body proportions, like you fall in the expected range. But if you're wider and shorter, you can use instead of a high back sling, you would probably use a medium back sling or a low back sling for the same width, to get the height of this part of the sling right. Or if you're very tall, you could use the Amputate sling. So, but a good gauge is putting the sling base at your coccyx and then seeing where the head support gets to. So like that on me, that's a medium, and that's just about right. It's probably a little bit short, but I'm a bit on the skinny side, so it's probably the right size for me overall.
So Andy, if you want my 2 cents on the situation, I reckon that the good old guess and check method seems to be the most effective. You can make use of the weight specifications that ETAC provides, or you can just get a couple of slings off us and sit them next to the person hold them up next to the person in either the seated or lying position to work out what looks about right. The best thing to do is just to have a go. So you get one that looks about right, and you fit it to the client, pop it down behind them, and you then go ahead, perform a lift, make sure that they're not falling through the bottom of the sling, that the head support is head and back support is of an appropriate height, just visually. And if it looks too big or too small, go down or up a size. I think a trial really is a great way to establish which sling size is the best, and trying to use measurements or weights is never a definitive answer. It's not possible to get it right. And as Jeremy says, the best way is to contact Jeremy, and he's got trial slings. Just trot out and just try all the sizes, and always, I always sort of try and make the sling as small as possible rather than big, so that it's not swimming on the person and it reduces the chance of them falling through the bottom of it. So, but definitely just try it. Excellent. Thanks so much, everyone. I'm going to leave you now. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.